In today's world, people want results fast. Mindset advice is everywhere. You'll hear things like just think positive or rewire your brain in 21 days. One click, one reel, one life-changing truth. But none of it sticks. Motivation fades, discipline breaks. And people wonder why nothing changes. Now imagine telling this to Aristotle. He wouldn't just disagree. He'd say you're thinking the wrong way entirely. Aristotle believed that life wasn't about chasing outcomes or chasing feelings. He said the purpose of life is something else entirely. He called it eudaimonia, not happiness the way we think of it, not pleasure, not excitement, not comfort. Eudaimonia means a life well lived, a complete life, one that fulfills its potential, a life of deep meaning, guided by reason and action, not by moods or motivation. But there's a catch. You don't reach it by aiming at it. You get there by becoming a certain kind of person, someone who does the right thing at the right time in the right way. That's what Aristotle called virtue. He didn't care about rules the way some philosophers did. He didn't say, do this, never do that. He also didn't say the ends justify the means. His focus wasn't on what you do once. It was on what kind of person you're becoming every day, through action. That's the difference. Aristotle's ethics weren't about rules or results. They were about who you become. He believed character is formed by repetition. You don't become brave by reading about courage. You become brave by facing fear over and over until it becomes part of you. You don't become honest by admiring truth. You become honest by telling the truth, especially when it's hard. Virtue isn't built in a moment. It's shaped through habits, repeated choices that slowly form your identity. He said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. Now compare that to how most people approach self-improvement today. They look for quick fixes, tricks, productivity hacks, mental frameworks, instant rewiring. They think change happens with the right app, the right podcast, the right piece of advice at the right time. Everything is short-term. Everything is a shortcut. Scroll for 30 seconds, feel inspired, set a goal, do it for a week, give up, repeat. But none of that leads anywhere because it's backwards. The modern approach focuses on how to feel better, not how to become better. It's obsessed with external rewards, dopamine spikes, optimizing moods. But for Aristotle, that was never the path to a strong character. You don't train your mind by chasing feelings. You train it by doing what is right, regardless of how you feel. That's why the modern mindset is fragile. It depends on motivation, on emotion, on momentum. But Aristotle's mindset doesn't care about any of that. It doesn't need inspiration. It needs practice, the right action, done again and again, until it becomes second nature. To him, a good life wasn't about freedom from pain. It was about discipline, about choosing the harder path when it matters, and not once, but for a lifetime. That kind of thinking doesn't sell well today. It's not viral, it's not flashy, it's slow, it's difficult, but it works, because it builds something stronger than motivation. It builds character. Aristotle believed that if you train your habits will train you. They'll shape how you think, how you act, how you respond when life pushes back. That's how he thought people became excellent, not through bursts of brilliance, but through long, steady effort in the right direction. So while modern self-help looks for emotional highs, Aristotle's system is about building a solid base. While today's advice tells you to chase confidence, he would tell you to act with integrity until confidence becomes automatic. While modern thinking says believe in yourself, Aristotle says prove it to yourself, because you become the kind of person you act like, not the one you wish to be. This is why most mindset advice doesn't last. It's not rooted in anything, it's surface level. Aristotle's method is deeper, slower, but permanent, because it understands one truth that most of today's advice ignores. You don't rise to the level of your thoughts. You fall to the strength of your habits. And the people who understand that, and who live that, don't need tricks. They don't need hacks. They just act, repeatedly, until who they are becomes who they were meant to be. Aristotle believed you don't need to feel like a good person to become one. You just need to act like one, repeatedly, every day. That's how he said character is built, not by thinking, not by feeling, by doing. It's a simple idea. If you want to be just, act justly. If you want to be brave, do brave things. Even if it doesn't feel natural, even if it's uncomfortable. The actions come first, the mindset comes later. Today, people wait to feel ready. They wait to be motivated. But Aristotle would say that's the wrong way around. He saw habit as the foundation. Actions repeated over time until they shape who you are. And once something becomes part of who you are, you no longer need to think about it. It becomes automatic, like muscle memory for the mind. Modern science now agrees. Behavioral psychologists like James Clear and Charles Duhigg describe how habits work through loops. First, there's a cue, something that triggers a response. Then comes the routine, the behavior itself. Finally, the reward, the outcome your brain likes. Do that enough, and your brain wires it in. Good or bad, it sticks. That's why small choices matter, because habits are compound interest. A single action means nothing on its own. But over weeks, months, years, they build. One glass of water isn't much, but drink water instead of soda every day for a year, and it adds up. One skipped workout isn't a big deal. Skip every workout, and it defines your health. This is how identity gets shaped. Not by dramatic shifts, not by one-time decisions, but by consistency. Aristotle's method was to start small. Don't try to fix everything at once. Focus on one thing, one weakness, then act against it again and again until it becomes strength. Say your vice is laziness. Don't try to become ultra-productive overnight. Pick something tiny. A 10-minute walk every morning, no excuses. Doesn't matter if it's raining. Doesn't matter if you're tired. Just walk. 10 minutes. Every day. At first, it won't feel like much. You'll still think of yourself as lazy. But after a few weeks, that starts to change. You begin to expect it from yourself. You feel off when you skip it, because your brain starts identifying with the action. I'm someone who moves every morning. That's the shift. And once that habit becomes part of you, you can build on it, add more. But you only get there by starting with less. Aristotle knew that big change begins with small practice. The key is consistency. You can think of it like calluses. You don't get them from one workout. You get them from repeated effort. The same friction over time makes your hands tougher. Habits do the same for your mind. The more you push through resistance, the less it affects you. The more you do what you said you would, the stronger that pattern becomes. And the best part is, you don't need to feel motivated. You just need to show up. Because feelings don't create behavior. Behavior creates new feelings. You act, then believe. Not the other way around. That's why this works. It's not about changing how you think. It's about changing what you do. Every action is a vote for the kind of person you want to become. And the more votes you cast, the more confident you get. Aristotle wasn't offering a shortcut. He was offering a process, a path that works if you're willing to stick with it, even when it's boring, even when it's hard. So if you want to change your mindset, stop trying to think your way there. Build it with action. Start with one habit. Keep it small. Make it daily. Remove the option to skip. Do it until it feels automatic. Then stack another, slowly. Over time. You won't feel different tomorrow. That's not the goal. But in 100 days, you'll act differently. You'll think differently. And more importantly, you'll see yourself differently. That's how you train your habits. That's how habits train you. Aristotle believed that knowing the right thing isn't enough. You need to know when to act, how to act, and why it matters. He called this phronesis, not book knowledge, not cleverness, practical wisdom. Phronesis is what separates theory from real judgment. It's the skill of making solid decisions when there's no clear rule to follow. When life isn't clean, when situations are messy, it's the kind of thinking that can't be taught through lectures. It has to be earned through action. Imagine someone with intelligence but no experience. They know the rules, they understand logic, but they don't know how to apply it when things break down. Now picture someone who's been through it, who's failed, adjusted, tested, and refined. That's the difference. Aristotle said the second person has phronesis. He saw it as essential for any life of virtue, because good choices aren't just about morals in theory, they're about timing, about balancing courage and caution, about seeing what fits in the moment. That requires something deeper than memorized answers. In today's world, people often freeze. They overthink. They run simulations in their mind. They wait for perfect clarity, and they call it being careful. But Aristotle saw that as avoidance, because phronesis isn't about waiting. It's about choosing under pressure and learning from it. The modern mind wants guarantees. It wants the right answer without risk. But in real life, that rarely exists. What matters more is judgment, the ability to weigh outcomes, choose, and adapt. That's the core of practical wisdom. You see this in people who lead well, not because they're the smartest, but because they've trained themselves to decide under tension. They know how to read a situation and respond with calm, calculated action, not by guessing but by habit, built through years of trial and reflection. Think of a surgeon during an unexpected emergency. They don't have time to debate. They move, based on experience, pattern, instinct refined by hours of effort. That's phronesis. You don't get it from theory. You get it from doing the work. Or take someone in business. A moral choice comes up. Do they take the easy profit, or do they hold the line? There's no formula, but someone with phronesis can see long-term consequences. They know when the cost isn't worth it. That insight doesn't come from a spreadsheet. It comes from values shaped by repetition. In ancient Athens, Aristotle believed that wisdom didn't belong to philosophers alone. He talked about the phronimos, the practically wise person, not someone who talks, someone who lives it, a mentor, a guide, someone who's seen enough to speak from practice, not from opinion. His method to develop this wasn't complicated. He said, go into the world, face problems, reflect, ask what you did right, what you missed, what you'd do differently. That's how you sharpen judgment. You act, then learn, then act again. He believed in building a kind of moral muscle memory, so that when life throws uncertainty, you don't collapse into hesitation. You respond with clarity, not perfect, but steady. One way to build that is through a moral journal. Write down what happened, what you chose, and why. Even the small stuff. Over time, patterns emerge. You start to notice where you avoid, where you react too fast, where you improve. That reflection creates progress. The other way is through people, mentors, observing those who live wisely. Not the loudest voices, but the most consistent. Watch how they move, what they prioritize, how they handle stress. This isn't copying, it's learning how strong judgment is formed. Eventually, the goal isn't to always be right, it's to know how to reach the right place, even when it's unclear. That's the real skill. Aristotle knew that moral strength comes from exposure, not from isolation. The more you face, the more you learn. The more you learn, the better your judgment gets. And that's how phronesis grows. Slowly, deliberately, through effort, not luck. You won't always make the perfect call, but with enough training, you'll stop fearing the moment. You'll see options faster. You'll act sooner. You'll recover better. And that's what builds a mind that doesn't break under pressure. A mind that trusts its own process. That's the outcome, not certainty, but confidence in your path to clarity. And Aristotle believed that's what makes a person truly wise. Aristotle believed strength isn't found at the edges, it's found in balance. In what he called the golden mean, the middle point between two extremes. Not too little, not too much, just enough to act rightly. He said that for every virtue, there are two ways to miss it. Take courage. Fall short and you're a coward. Go too far and you're reckless. True courage sits between those. It's measured. It knows when to act and when to hold back. This principle applies everywhere. Honesty, if taken too far, becomes cruelty. Too little and it becomes deceit. Discipline, if overdone, becomes obsession. If neglected, turns into laziness. The key is knowing where the line is and staying near it. Most people swing. 1 week they push too hard. Burnout. The next they avoid everything. Apathy. One day they're overconfident. The next, filled with doubt. That's not resilience, that's instability. Aristotle called it a failure in character, not because people are bad, but because they haven't trained balance. He saw this imbalance as a weakness. A person who flips between extremes can't be trusted with decisions. They react based on feelings, not reason. But the one who holds steady are not flat, just centered. They're reliable, not perfect, just consistent. To get there, you have to track your reactions, notice the patterns. Where do you lose control? Where do you overdo it? That's your signal. Because virtue isn't natural, it's practiced. Aristotle believed that balance doesn't mean being average. It means choosing the middle path on purpose, not from confusion, but from clarity. He said the good life is about finding the right measure in every action. That measure depends on the situation, the person, the goal. There's no formula. That's why it requires effort. Let's break it down. A weak mindset reacts emotionally, gets stuck in extremes, over-identifies with thoughts. One mistake and it spirals, one compliment and it inflates, always moving, never grounded. But an unbreakable mind doesn't need to overreact. It sees emotion, then responds with direction. It doesn't suppress or explode. It channels energy towards something useful. That's the golden mean in practice, emotional energy without chaos. You can build that. Start by observing small things. When someone cuts you off, do you rage or stay silent? Both can miss the mark. What would the balanced response look like? Maybe a calm decision not to let it ruin your focus. That's practicing virtue. It works with discipline too. Some days you'll want to push harder than needed, other times skip everything. Both are traps. The center is doing what's enough to grow, without destroying yourself. That's how you last. The world pushes people into extremes. Hustle culture says you need to grind non-stop. Comfort culture says rest endlessly. Neither works. One drains you, the other softens you. Aristotle would say both are vices. The solution isn't to pick a side, it's to balance effort with rest, purpose with pause. When hardship hits, people either collapse or become cold, but neither is strength. Strength is responding with balance, not denying pain, not getting crushed by it, seeing it as part of the process, then choosing how to act. That's the mindset Aristotle aimed for. To train this, use feedback. When you feel a strong reaction, pause. Ask, is this too much, too little? What would the middle response look like here? Not average, but stable. Over time, those pauses form a habit. The habit shapes how you think. How you think shapes who you are. And if you want to get better faster, find someone balanced. Watch them. Learn how they speak, how they adjust, how they move through stress. Not emotionless, just composed. That's the model. You're not copying their feelings. You're studying their calibration. Because becoming centered isn't about being numb. It's about being precise. You don't overdo. You don't underdo. You do what's needed. Every time you hit that middle point, you become harder to shake. Not because you're rigid, but because you're in control. This is how Aristotle thought people should live. Not wildly, not passively, but deliberately, finding the mean in each moment. It's a kind of balance that creates real strength. You don't become unbreakable by forcing toughness. You get there by not needing to prove anything, by not chasing every emotion, by not reacting to every challenge with extremes. The unbreakable person isn't loud, they're steady. They don't deny pressure. They work through it, calmly, wisely, consistently, because they've trained for it. They've aimed at the mean, and over time, they became it. Arete. The word doesn't mean success. It doesn't mean talent. It means excellence. But not the kind people show off. Not winning, not achieving, not appearing strong. Arete is about living in a way that matches your full potential, acting with purpose, choosing virtue over ease, not once, but every day. Aristotle didn't say you find excellence. He said you live it. It's not a destination. It's a habit, a repeated decision to do what's right, even when it's small, even when no one sees it. This kind of life doesn't look impressive on the outside, but it builds something solid, and it starts now. Not by watching another video, not by consuming more information, but by doing one thing, acting, just one habit, just one daily step. The challenge is simple. For 30 days, pick one action that builds virtue. Not results, not dopamine. Virtue, pick patience, or courage, or discipline, and find a small task that grows it. Not a huge change, just a consistent move in that direction. Maybe it's a 10-minute walk every morning, no excuses. Maybe it's putting your phone away at dinner. Maybe it's saying no when you usually give in. The action isn't what matters. The habit is. Because Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. And that's how character forms, through repetition. Next, every night, write down one decision you made that day. It doesn't have to be big. Just pick one. Then ask, was that decision made with wisdom? Did I apply judgment? Did I act too soon? Did I wait too long? This is how you train practical wisdom, through reflection. Over time, you'll see your own patterns. You'll spot where you hesitate, where you overreact, where you lean too far in or pull away too fast. And that awareness builds clarity. Because Aristotle didn't say to avoid mistakes, he said to learn from them. And that only happens when you look directly at your choices. The third part, emotional balance. Track one emotional extreme you fall into. Maybe it's anger or anxiety or avoidance, just one. Watch how it shows up. Then ask, what would the middle response look like? Not numb, not explosive, just balanced. And then practice that middle. Even if it feels unnatural at first, this entire process isn't about fixing yourself. That's not Aristotle's view. You're not broken, you're unfinished. And the solution isn't a burst of motivation, it's steady correction, slowly closing the gap between who you are and who you could be through action. The modern mindset chases hacks, tricks, fast change. It wants results in a week with minimal effort, but that approach fades. Because it's built on feeling, not on training. Aristotle's method is the opposite. No shortcuts, just alignment between thought and deed. For 30 days, live with arete. Choose one habit, one journal entry, one emotion to regulate. Do it daily, not for success, not for praise, but because it's the right path. Because this is how people become solid, not overnight, over time. The point isn't to transform your life in a month. The point is to begin the real work and to know you're doing it. Not just talking about it, not just thinking about it, but walking the same road Aristotle mapped 2,000 years ago. You don't need to believe in yourself. You don't need perfect motivation. You need action. That's the base. Because doing one small thing well every day adds up faster than chasing big changes you never keep. You'll want to skip days. That's expected. But remember, excellence isn't a single decision. It's many small ones done repeatedly, even when no one's watching, especially when it's hard. That's what makes it real, and that's what makes you reliable, because people with character don't wait for feelings, they move based on principle. That's arete. This isn't a trend, it's not new, it's ancient, and it still works, because human nature hasn't changed. Distraction, fear, laziness, arrogance, they're all old problems. And so is the answer. So the challenge is simple. Start. One habit, one reflection, one emotion. For 30 days you won't be finished, but you'll be on the road. And when you've walked that far, you'll start to see something shift. Not because you feel different, but because you've acted different. And that's what builds real strength. That's what builds someone you can trust. Even when things go wrong, that's the goal, not perfection. Just progress, one step at a time, toward arete. Aristotle wouldn't tell you to believe in yourself. He'd make you earn the right to. Thank you for following us till the end of the masterclass. If you like this kind of content, kindly like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more educational content. Thank you.